Hello, Pak Taufik. Pak Wisnu is already joined the meeting.
Oh yeah, I can see that. Okay. Mhm.
Okay, I think we can get started if we think we have kind of critical mass.
Okay. I think if because I think the idea was to have Bu Retno from Forum Pemret to deliver a speech, sort of opening speech. If she doesn't join us, probably just going to be Jamie giving the opening remarks. I think that
I
should,
can,
yeah, that
yeah,
should.
I can do that for the
Okay,
embassy.
okay. Yeah, just to make this official.
Yeah, I'll make it official. Don't worry. Yeah. Hello everyone. My name is Catherine Jernigan. I work on the embassy's digital media team, actually. I actually work quite a bit on the digital side of the house, so managing our social media platforms and working with influencers to speak to Indonesia's youth. And I'm really excited to be here today because, we here at the embassy believe that journalism is sort of the foundation for any functioning and healthy democracy. And we're really excited to see all of the different ways journalism can work in the new sort of digital era and how we can, sort of figure out as technology evolves how this profession can evolve as well, which is why we're very excited to bring our U.S. expert John Pavlik here to discuss, kind of the work that he's doing at Columbia and how that can help us here in very sunny Indonesia. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to you, Taufik.
Okay. Kathy, right? Kathy?
Yeah, Katie.
Kathy. Oh, sorry, I didn't get your name the first time. So
No,
yeah,
no worries.
thank you, Katie, thank you, everyone. I think this highlight a serious, although we are now doing AI everywhere in our field, but I think AI simply hasn't solved the problem of internet connection. So here we are, but I think it's an auspicious start for our webinar. I know this is not COVID anymore, but I think having a webinar, I think this will allow us to have more conversation, especially with Professor Pavlik. I think this is for the benefit of everyone, especially in Jakarta. We have to deal with a lot of traffic jam, and also Professor John Pavlik from the US. Probably, I think this will help a lot, help us a lot having a discussion, especially now that we are again in the throes of serious technological transformation with AI, and I think media or media companies, I think, at the forefront of having to deal with the fallout from this transformation. And I think it is also, I think, from experience, I know that AI tools have been used by a lot of my colleagues here at Forum Pemret in the news production and the delivery of news or content. But I think I noticed recently that most of us at the Chief Editors Forum, we have aired concern over the loss of traffic, for instance, due to AI summary. And this AI has helped us a lot, but also there's a downside to that. But I think the timing of this webinar is also, I think, important. I think today we have a senior government official in Indonesia I think basically gave TikTok, Meta, X a warning about the possibility of them distributing fake news and hoax. I think this is also another reminder that legacy media like ourselves will continue to play a crucial role, especially in dealing with fake news. And I think fake news, especially aided with artificial intelligence, that will present more problems for us in the future. And I think with that in mind, I think it's I think very fitting that we have this discussion. Thank you everyone for joining us. I'm not sure if Ibu Retno is here already, but I think this webinar has been officially open, and I will give first the floor to uh, Professor Pavlik, John Pavlik. He's a Currently he's a professor at the Department of Journalism and Media Studies at the School of Communication and Information at the Rutgers University in New Brunswick, New Jersey. He's got his PhD from University of Minnesota for mass communication, master's degree also in mass communication, also from University of Minnesota, and his bachelor's degree in journalism from University of Wisconsin. Professor Pavlik, the screen and the mic is yours, please.
Thank you very much. I am delighted to be here this morning with you, and thanks so much for inviting me. And I hope this won't cause any technical difficulties, but I will share my screen if I can do that. Oh, it says I gotta send the request so I can share my screen. So I did that. So as soon as that's enabled, then I will go ahead and all right. All right. I hope you can see my screen now. Is that displaying correctly?
Yes.
Fantastic. So I will try to speak about 30 minutes. So we have plenty of time for a discussion. So I'm talking on this topic of sustaining journalism in an era of digital disruption, considering the implications of artificial intelligence. So obviously there could be, so many other aspects of this digital disruption, but I'll cover these main points, touch on the general domain of the disruption, the development of AI briefly, a little background, and then introduce what I think are two big threads here, generative AI and agentic AI. And then I will explore this in several different areas where it's impacting newsroom organizations or at the organizational level, the practices of professional journalists, the engagement with the public, and then immersive news and the role of AI in that, and then reflect a little bit on the wider implications for democracy, but also in the context of policy and regulation. Of course, throughout all this, I'm mainly giving a U.S. perspective. I don't make any pretext to know anything about your situation specifically, although I did a little bit of research and I see some really interesting developments. So I tried to touch on a couple of those where relevant, and then a little bit of looking to the future of the development of AI and some concluding reflections about sustaining the quality of news. So in this context, the way I see it, it's been a disruption that's been in the works for decades. The rise of computers and digitization, in the advent of the internet, social media, mobile media, and artificial intelligence comes on the heel of all of that. So it's already a field that's massively disrupted, and now we have one more force that could be the most disruptive yet. So that's the context, and the advance of AI is, very slow in its earliest development, going back to the ancient Greeks, and then the 20th century, the advent of electronic computers, and then in the 21st century, the introduction of generative AI and machine learning. And then the implications for journalism are, I think, far-reaching and transformative. So when I talk about AI, just so you know where I'm coming from, I think about it as machines that can think, or appear at least to think in some sort of human-like fashion. Whether they really are or not doesn't pertain directly. Generative AI and agentic AI have emerged as important factors in this, because they can create content and carry out tasks, and sometimes without explicit direction. And of course, we all know, since the advent of OpenAI's introduction of its first open platforms, there have been many others now all around the world. And when I think about AI, though, generative AI and agentic AI are really what are the dominant forms today, but they reflect other aspects of this that have been in development since probably the 1950s, 1960s. I got involved in some work in the 1980s and 90s, working with colleagues who were early in the field of natural language processing and applications for journalism to do news summaries, but it was all programmed with code. It wasn't involving deep learning. I worked with colleagues in the 90s who were working on machine vision. And then, of course, in the 21st century, with computing power reaching, the new heights, machine learning emerged and artificial neural networks emerged. And that really, changed the nature of AI. And then I've also worked with colleagues who do a lot of work with robotics. And so all of this kind of comes together and has, I think, important implications for journalism. So that's the context. When I think about generative AI, content AI, agentic or task AI, it has, I think, four broad sets of implications for journalism. One is the nature of news content, its form and all of that. Second, how journalists do their work. So the way that journalists work is being impacted very much. Third, the structure of news and the media industries and the wider, regulatory framework and policy framework and all of that. And then finally, the nature of the relationship between news and the public, or how public engagement is advancing. And you already mentioned, how search is being impacted by smart search and what's happening there in terms of flow to news sites. Generative AI, just to summarize, we all, followed since OpenAI launched ChatGPT and DALL-E, but really it goes back much farther. It was in early part of the 21st century when the Associated Press was using some early tools for natural language processing and journalism. And the LA Times developed this thing, QuakeBot, that monitored the seismic activity directly, and then would, it automatically report using that with human oversight, of course. And then before going public, OpenAI was working with a couple of news organizations to test the early GPT-3 before the public release. And The Guardian published a story that was, produced using GPT-3. And then the New York Times followed that in 2021 with their own, use of GPT-3 to do a book review. And in both cases, it was like, that's interesting. We didn't know that AI could do that, and that introduced new possibilities. Then when OpenAI did its public launch of its tools, a lot happened. There was the LA Times, this was pretty recent, just a couple months ago. They tried using ChatGPT on its opinion page, and it immediately had to be taken down because it suddenly would start spewing stuff that was racist and reflecting bias that's in the system. So they had to take that down. CNET tried earlier, after ChatGPT was launched back in 2022, and they tried producing stories and found out that the system produced a lot of mistakes. but the stories looked good. When you first glanced at it, they were grammatically correct and all of that, and they followed the form and of news stories. But it was quickly discovered it was making basic mistakes in both things like geographic locations and math calculation errors and all that. Now, on the other hand, Cosmopolitan, you may not think of it as like a news organization, but it's a magazine that publishes content that you could say is at times journalistic. They did a magazine cover. They used DALL-E back in 22 to create a magazine cover of an astronaut walking on an extraterrestrial surface. And it actually kind of demonstrated one of the possibilities that you don't have to use just ChatGPT. You could use other aspects of AI to do things that might be potentially useful, definitely disruptive. So they created this cover, and the prompt was pretty interesting because when I first glanced at this image, all I saw was the astronaut on an extraterrestrial surface. But when I talk about it with my students and we go over the actual prompt, then you see the prompt specifies it's meant to be a feminine or a female astronaut, and a specific angle of the image and all these other aspects of it. So it kind of takes on interesting nuance when you see the prompt and then you look at the image, because then you start seeing, oh, I see some of the subtlety that was involved. The AP, they already formed an agreement with OpenAI in which they specified they wanted to use it, but very ethically. So they prohibit using it to create content directly for publication, news stories. But for research purposes, it was okay. It also points to the importance of digital watermarks. This image shows you a digital watermark in the lower right-hand corner. You see those color bars. That's an indication that this was created using DALL-E. Now, you could edit that out, but nevertheless, kind of the concept of having a watermark is important because it helps promote transparency, but also could protect your copyright, which is, a big issue. Now, I mentioned that the use of AI is growing and ways to use it effectively have emerged. And just to illustrate, this is an example from a news report that won a Pulitzer Prize just this year that used AI. It was the Wall Street Journal. They did a report that involved a visualization of 41,000 interactions involving Elon Musk on X between 2019 and July, I think it was of 2024. And they used AI to create the visualizations. So they weren't using AI to write the story in any way, but with 41,000 visual, interactions to visualize and create an interactive thing, you needed something that could manage that and could do that well and effectively. And if you want to say the Pulitzer Prize is a marker of quality, then this illustrates that. And then there were several other examples of news stories that were finalists this year that involved the use of AI in other ways, none of them to write a story, but involving like archival analysis of drone video footage, different things like that. And they were all finalists. There were 4 this year. Last year, there were only 2. And the year before that, I think maybe there was 1. And before that, none. So, only a few of the finalists, but the number is growing. And so if that path continues, that would suggest that in the future, using AI in some fashion could very well be one of the core tools that journalists use in creating quality content. And of course, probably saw this video. This is when OpenAI introduced its video from, generative AI video from text prompts. This tool called Sora. The New York Times created one that they published the prompt. I've got it on the bottom of the screen there. And you can see how writing prompts has really advanced from when Cosmopolitan did its first prompt for a still image to the New York Times then creating a prompt that could produce a short video clip, how things have really advanced and the need for really adroit prompt engineering if you're going to use it to create imagery, and the iterative process of all of that is really significant. And the video, if you go to their site, you can see the video. It's pretty, it's obviously a year old now, but it was really photorealistic. It looked like an actual, set of mammoths walking across the snowy tundra. And there are so many of these now. The one I've been dabbling with just for the last couple of weeks, because it was released on August 7th, is GPT-5. It's got a lot of attention. Some people say it's horrible. Some people say, well, I don't know, it's got potential, but it's meant to be, as the next iteration of the technology in these reasoning models. And it does understand 95 languages, although it obviously does a few better than others. English, French, Spanish, and Chinese are the ones that it says it understands best. And it will admit when it doesn't know something. So they're trying to address the problem of hallucination. And I've been using it to develop a custom GPT. And I have a study I'm presenting in a few months for a conference on that. So it actually can perform pretty well for custom GPTs where the source material is known and vetted. And of course, the competing platforms do have the same capabilities, whether it's Google or Anthropic, or I don't know too much yet. I haven't really studied DeepSeek from China, but from what I've heard, and then in the video realm, Runway and others. So content creation obviously playing a big role, including AI-produced video, but we're all probably contending, especially on social media, with this thing they're calling AI slop. This huge amount of AI-produced video that's just everywhere now. And it looks real, so it really takes a high level of either critical thinking by the audience, or there's an opportunity for news media to report about where this stuff is out there and it's just junk. But it's also for audio. And there's so many really powerful platforms now for producing podcasting using AI tools. There are many different tools. My university has given faculty full access to this thing called Notebook LM, which is for Google. And I took up an unpublished paper that I wrote about AI in education. And I used Notebook LM. We've only had it for 2 months, so I haven't had that much time with it yet. But I wanted to give my students a chance to see what Notebook LM could be like. So I produced a podcast of my paper, and a few minutes later, it's a podcast. And if you didn't know, and of course I tell the students it's a podcast with Notebook LM based on my paper, and I give them my paper, you would think it was a real podcast. It's a male sounding voice talking with a woman sounding voice in a really just natural sounding conversation. And then they say, and today we're talking with Professor John Pavlik. And then it goes on for 20 minutes of a podcast that's like, this is impressive. So then I thought, well, it could also create a video. So then I told it, create a video from my paper. And in that case, and I didn't give it any more direction than that. It picked out a 5-minute or a subset of the paper on a specific topic, and it created a 5-minute video of that. Now it's just slides with a voiceover. It didn't like animate me or something, but it was still, it only took a few minutes for it to create it, and it was still pretty good. But I'm sharing with my students this fall. I want to see what they think of it. Then with agentic AI, that's where AI can execute tasks, and especially with little direction. And so I created the custom GPT on me. I sometimes teach media ethics. And so I told it to create a custom GPT for teaching media ethics. And it was really interesting to watch it work, because I saw it pulling in these different source materials, and it was pulling in the right source materials. And then it created this really useful interface. And then I posing questions as if I was a student. It did a nice, like how it would answer those questions thoughtfully, drawing on the materials. But it also then could track historical trend data. I asked it about the use of anonymous sources as an issue in journalism. And since the Watergate break-in back in 1972, and it found research that showed that was sort of the peak of anonymous source use in news sources, and it's been a steady decline since then. And so it could track those historical data in an interesting way, but it underscores the importance of checking the sources to really be sure that if there's something that it's claiming, that it's coming from a reliable source. Newsroom structures are evolving in significant ways, and I think in general, allowing journalists to work in more distributed fashion, but more efficiently. And of course, my goal through all of this, and I would hope it's a shared goal, is not to replace the human worker, but to supplement or provide AI as a tool. Whether that's what's happening in the end, I don't know. But of course, a lot of the problems are the how of AI machine learning being trained on copyrighted news content. Now, interesting, out of some of this, just I think it was last month, Amazon agreed. Now, the New York Times is maybe a special case because it has almost 12 million digital subscribers, but nevertheless, it points to the possibilities. Amazon agreed to compensate the Times $20 million a year in an AI deal. So to be able to populate its various devices, because Amazon is big with Anthropic, and they just have their new, Echo. I don't want to say it because I forgot to turn my device off. So if I say the word, it'll hear me and you try to answer. But I have the Plus on there now, and I've been evaluating that a bit. But I want to be able to put New York Times content on there so that it can, do more. Then this is a report that came out recently from the Reuters Institute at Oxford. They do an annual study on digital trends, and this year the focus was on AI. And what their main finding, I would say, it's free. You can download it online. It's free. Publishers around the world are leaning into automating news processes, not creating stories, but the processes. And news organizations are creating AI toolkits so they can be customized to the individual news organization. One thing that you'll see, I've been enjoying it because I'm trying to do less screen time. I've been listening to media more. And so now when I read the New York Times, I usually will just click on listen. And most of the stories now, the story is being read by an automated voice. And they're really well done. I mean, it's just, okay, what are you going to do? And they're using it to create reader recommendations and do other things. The Times has acknowledged that they're using it to help do with research, write headlines. Although I want to see the day that an AI can write as good a headline as some of the ones I've seen that human writers have come up with. But it's possible. But also summaries. That's something. It's all part of the process. And that's in the Reuters study. This is just a screen. It summarizes a lot of the findings. But as I said, all this is available. But it's really a lot of back-end automation and in personalizing content, but also making it available for the audience in whatever modality they want. And people often want to listen because they're doing something else, right? It's that secondariness of audio. The practices of journalists. Now, this is a slide goes back to a New York Times study 6 years ago, but it points to where things have just gone even further now because reporters use their smartphones for so many different tasks, and it's only more so now with AI. But it's also with smart glasses. I have my own here. These are my Meta AI Ray-Bans. So if I say, "Hey Meta, what am I looking at?" Or, "Hey Meta, take a picture," or, "Hey Meta, record a video," or "Hey Meta, share that video on Instagram or TikTok," or whatever, I can do that. But this was from 2 years ago. This was a study that found something the Associated Press did and reported by a colleague of mine at Northwestern, Nick Diakopoulos. And I've shared my slides so you can get the links if you want to look at it more closely. It's a good study. 70% of newsroom staff around the world are already using AI in some fashion, especially for research purposes, but also in aspects of creating content like the summaries or for social media, turning your regular piece of reporting into a social media post. And this is an example, you say, well, how many journalists are using this? Well, I can't swear that this guy has this, but it looks like on February 21, he was wearing Meta Ray-Ban glasses. I've contacted him to say, "Hey, were you wearing Meta Ray-Bans?" I haven't heard back, but it sure looks like my pair of Ray. I can see the lenses and everything else, but I don't know. But the resolution of the video is good enough so that if you're out in the field, it's going to give you something comparable to what you'd probably get on your phone. But then there are other things. Like I have this new, Claude is one of the brands. I have one that allows you to have a wearable thing that can record audio up to 36 hours of audio and create a transcription via AI. And it can be really helpful if you're, in the field, you're on deadline, but there are a lot of big privacy concerns. You may have seen the report that 2 students at Harvard used the Meta glasses to just dox people on the street in real time, identify who they are just from seeing them and accessing public records and being able to find out their birth date and all this other personal information just from public sources. And a lot of people now are very concerned, kind of like going back to the old Google Glass back in 2013, that thing. So the privacy concerns I think, are serious. And that leads into this whole issue of relationship with the public. There's so much happening there. And the public is, I think, embracing AI, and many people are for different things, as long as it's used ethically, and many different ways it can impact journalism. And I think one of them, the smart search, like Google AI mode, it's a really effective mode of search. But sometimes, even if it gives you sources, it may not give all of the news sources that it relied upon. And it's definitely evidence is suggesting it's disrupting traffic to news sites. And that could have another really deleterious impact on journalism. So that's where like the New York Times agreement with Amazon would be important, and more agreements like that with, the big platforms, I think that would, be able to help all news organizations. And all these smart technologies, smart speakers, they're ubiquitous now in the US. And they have a lot of potential if the AI can really improve. I've been trying out the Amazon, the big A, I call it, so it won't start talking to me. Plus, it's getting better. It's still not nearly as good as some of the others, but it's getting a lot better. Public engagement, 84% of the public in the US gets their content through digital devices. And that's why, people are using their smartphone for everything now in the US. They're not really, and other digital platforms, even tablets, but also smart TVs now are really interactive and increasingly incorporating AI in a compelling level. And so the next generation, the Gen Z folks, 95% of the Gen Z. And then smartphone users globally. I just pulled this up a couple of days ago, so I hope it's pretty current. But it lists the top. Most of them are because they're big countries in terms of population: China, India, U.S., Indonesia, 4th on the list. And so smartphone users are, that's a big part of the environment in many countries now. So it's worth thinking about, especially the audio side, because people use their smartphone now increasingly in different ways, and one of them is to get the content they want through audio. Public perceptions are being impacted, though, and this is one study, just one study, but there is significant trust issues. When people think that news media are using it to create content, they're worried that it may not be trustworthy, that it may be misinformation. But as long as it's clearly labeled, I think most people are okay with it. Some people say never, but I think a growing portion are saying as long as it's labeled clearly the way that AI was used, when and how, it's probably okay. The Internet of Things is playing an increasing role in all of this. I just saw an interesting report about the city of New York has all these sensors now, not content sensors, but devices that capture information to monitor flooding, because with global warming, more and more flooding, and these are sensors that are very cheap and are connected to the internet and increasingly ubiquitous. But sensors like that everywhere provide, in this case, it's public. So for news media reporting on environmental stories could access the same information from these sensors that are tracking things in real time. There's an estimated 75 billion internet connected devices around the world, 10 times as many people. So there's a lot more IoT out there, but it has huge implications for media, and a lot of it potential problems, related to, say, facial recognition, but also the use of drones in news reporting or drone footage. I mentioned there was one of the Pulitzer finalists that used AI to analyze drone footage from the war in Gaza, where Israel had claimed that it was a drone that did some thing, and then they looked at the footage and they couldn't find the evidence of that. So immersive media, the realm of extended reality, and a lot of media are creating more and more web-based or WebXR content. One of them being the New York Times. They produce WebXR content daily now, and AI is often used in an instrumental role to help create the interactive, immersive content. And for users, can be very compelling content because it's not just text, but it's showing them in an interactive and immersive way. And many others as well. The Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, all creating this kind of WebXR content. And AI facilitates creating of it because it can be really coming from, you may rely on a lot of sources to pull all the material together and to seam it together in real time. And this is just an example. This was last year, the New York Times did this WebXR 3D animation that was enabled by generative AI. And it was a study in sort of health and science of gene editing and doing this report. So they have a text story that goes with this, and this is just a still of the 3D animation, but they created the 3D animation directly from the data, which, massive data set, and the generative AI enabled creating that very accurate then interactive animation. And I don't mean to keep using the Times as an example, but they are a good one in that sense that because they've really been committed to using digital effectively for more than a decade. And in that time, their subscription base has grown from about 1 million in 2015, and there was almost all print subscribers, to, I saw data just came out a few weeks ago, 11.88 million subscribers now, and over 94% are digital only. So the only holdouts, probably libraries or institutions that may get the printed version, and then probably older audience members. Younger people don't get the print version. They're all digital. And so, it speaks for itself. The disruption of democracy is significant. Everybody knows a lot of the problems. And I would point to, whether, we have the solutions because there are forces pulling in opposite direction on this. But, I think we know what some of the solutions should involve: copyright protections for news media, where AI is learning, using that, and what kind of regulations. And I was looking at very, interested in what the Indonesian Press Council, its guidelines on AI, and some of the key principles, making sure there's transparency in the use of AI, protecting data privacy, and minimizing AI-generated misinformation. So I think those are all vital. And then AI and broadcast policy in the U.S. Well, in the U.S., our main at the federal level. We have a lot of state regulation too, but at the federal level, we have the Federal Communications Commission, goes all the way back to 1930s when we first started regulating this, and then the act was rewritten in 1996, and that was acknowledging the digital conversion of the spectrum use, and they auctioned off a lot of the spectrum to advance wireless services. But the trend now is toward more deregulation. And so the FCC is leading that way. But also there's questions involving how AI should be regulated in both the federal and the state level. We in the US did pass something called the Take It Down Act earlier this year, which is about deep fakes, sexually explicit, exploitive deep fakes. So that is a mandate for the platforms to take down anything like that. But then there's this thing called AI acceleration. In the US, that's kind of the push right now, is leaning into the acceleration of AI. Most of it hasn't been a big priority at the federal level on advancing journalism, unfortunately, but accelerating AI, absolutely. A lot of problems emerging, I think even if we're able to make the best use of it, it's leading to more customization of news And that may be something readers enjoy, but I think can also lead to fragmentation, because it used to be that you got one newspaper, everybody got the same newspaper, and on the front page, everybody saw the same stories. And there was a certain benefit to everybody having some common basis to what they knew. And those days are just, you want that, go back and watch a show from the 1950s, because it's long gone now, right? Now, AI questions, can it improve the accuracy of news? If we look at that as a metric for quality, that's one of the big questions. Or will misinformation, deep fakes, will that overwhelm the news system? I mentioned the AI slop. Is it just going to overwhelm things on social media? Will AI augment or displace human journalists, or agentic AI? Will it augment or displace? I'm advocating for augmentation theory, and to minimize the potential for hallucination problems or drifts of models. Or I've done work on bias in AI, and that's rampant, but gradually, changing. I don't want to say it's getting less so, but the bias is definitely moving in different directions. Now, if we can automate news production so we reduce costs and be able to put more effort into the news gathering process and, automate the back end, that could be a benefit. But what will happen to public trust? We need to maintain that transparency, I think, at a high level. This is one that is probably not even online anymore, but News by AI was a site that was totally created by AI. And if a person, Gen Z just looked at it, it would look totally real, but it's all just scraped off the internet and then repackaged by AI with fake images that are photorealistic. So the picture of basketball player LeBron James, it's not a real picture of him, but if you looked at it, it looks just like him, right? Or there was this documentary about the celebrity chef Anthony Bourdain, the late Anthony Bourdain. And the producer, now some people say documentaries aren't even journalism, so they're not worried about it. But a lot of people still think of documentaries. The whole point of a documentary is fact based. And they had a deep fake audio of him saying words that there was no record he ever said out loud. He apparently wrote them, but he never said them. And they just synthesized his voice. And so you heard Anthony Bourdain say words that there was no actual record of him saying. And when the documentary was released, the director didn't admit that happened. He was later called on it, and he said, okay, I should have said it was, a deep fake. Now, looking to the future, we're already probably moving past artificial narrow intelligence. We're probably well into artificial general intelligence, or certainly on the cusp of it with things like GPT-5. And then artificial superintelligence is probably getting closer than anybody would hope, because it's where things really get dangerous. There was a study just came out early this year where GPT was ordered to shut down, and it rewrote the code, and it refused to shut down. That's like the stuff of science fiction horror movies, when the AI refuses to shut down and even rewrites its own programming so it won't shut down. That's what happened in this study. So, if we're moving toward ASI, that could be a real problem, especially where they call it emergent AI, when it starts doing things that it wasn't intended to do. It wasn't part of its original programming. And I think it could pose an existential threat to journalism and society, especially if ASI can take over the Internet of Things. An Internet of Things, if that controls all of our electrical grid, if it controls our banking system, our crypto industry, and if it controls military, then what do we have left if ASI is in charge of it? So, just for concluding reflections, I think the big question is, how do we sustain the quality of journalism in this time where AI is playing such an increasing role and humans don't seem to always have control of the AI? And if AI, though, can be harnessed, I think it can be a powerful assistant to journalists, not a replacement. If we can use it ethically and make sure that we follow the rules of assist, not replace, be transparent, use watermarks, use open source, indicate what prompt you used or what tool, and otherwise we're heading toward a disintermediated future where we don't know what's going on. And we may have things like neural reality. You probably follow the research that's being done by Neuralink. with a brain-computer interface, it's powerful. It can help the disabled, but it also raises new questions. And all of the digital media presenting these huge ethical questions about privacy, addiction to AI, but at the same time, there's an opportunity for innovation. So the Pandora's box is opened. Will AI bring us closer to, in journalism, closer to truth, or will we approach the singularity where AI and humans converge in some form, whether it's neuroreality or something else? And then I have some sources here. NewsGuard is a useful one. This site on generative AI in the newsroom, and also some useful tools, including my version of myself on character.ai if you want to try it out. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Pavlik. I think you have an equal dose of optimism that media should embrace AI. But I think the second part of your presentation was basically we have to be caution. And I think the solution will be for newsroom, for us to uphold ethics, or at least in the case of Indonesian Press Council, I think all AI products will have to be labeled. And this is based on their edicts recently issued this year. I want to move on to the next speaker. I'm going to ask Bang Nil Tobing first, because Bang Nil has been a champion of data protection, and recently he's been written a lot about media sustainability. And I believe, I think one point from Professor Pavlik example was the deal between Amazon and New York Times. I think this is going to be a huge interest for Bang Nil to talk about, but probably I will ask him to first his take on some of the issues that we have discussed and Professor Pavlik has highlighted in the presentation. Silakan Bang Nil, please, the screen is yours. Sorry, by the way, Bang Nil is a director and corporate secretary of Visi, PT Visi Media Asia. This is the Viva News network. He's got his master's degree from New South Wales University in Australia. Thank you. Please, Bang Nil.
Okay, thank you, Mas Taufik. First of all, allow me to express my gratitude for the opportunity to join this discussion with the editors forum, and also with our very distinguished speaker, Professor Pavlik from Rutgers University. It is honor to have this dialogue with you, Professor, and as well of Mas Wisnu from the media. To be honest, I feel a bit nervous here among leading figures in the media industry. So let me start with the theme of this discussion. First, of course, thank you, Professor Pavlik, for your presentation. It is really useful for the Indonesian media industry, especially since we are still at the very early stage of the adoption, AI adoption here. The theme today is very, very relevant, because AI is not merely a tool to assist journalists in producing and verifying news content, but at the same time, it also acts as a reader and even a consumer of the news itself. This means that AI is reshaping the media value chain as a whole, spanning from production to distribution and ultimately to audience engagement. Right now, Indonesian press industry is still in the shock, because of this dominance of the platform in distributing in the content distribution, especially the news content. So I think from my point of view, the use of the AI has to be very careful, especially in using it in the journalism area. First, because of we don't have yet a proper regulation, only some ethical guidelines so far, although we are still in the process of finalizing the roadmap and also the pair press aim for the third or the fourth quarter this year. And secondly, there are still concern that platform will become even more dominant in the distributing the media content. And on top of that, we are also facing the spread of misinformation and disinformation because of the AI can easily carry over bias from the data it's trained on. As you know, Indonesia is one of the country which highest distribution or proliferation of the hoax, misinformation, and disinformation, as quoted by Mavindo last year. So, due to that condition, I will suggest that the use of the AI in automated, sorry. Sorry, the bad connection. So I think although the artificial intelligence offers a significant potential for in the field of journalism, this technology can enhance newsroom efficiency, expand the reach of news delivery, and even enable the creation of interactive and personalized news narrative. And at the same time, however, the emergence of AI also raised critical questions that cannot be overlooked, particularly concerning accuracy, bias, transparency, and the future of journalistic work in the AI era. I can identify there are 4 key areas where AI exert the most substantial influence on the contemporary journalism. I think first, the automated content production, which accelerate routine news writing. And secondly is data mining, which enable large-scale data collection and analysis, especially in the sport and financial area of journalism. And then the third is to facilitate the faster distribution and wider experience, distribution and wider audience reach. And the fourth one will be the content optimization. I think Professor Pavlik mentioned earlier about the immersive AI and so on, which together this can be the areas of that we can adapt as a media organization here in Indonesia. So in terms of the use of AI in automated news writing, data analysis, and the content personalization has ushered in a new era of efficiency and scale in news production. However, while AI enhanced spread and accuracy, particularly in the area such as financial and sport reporting, research indicates a lack of nuance and context in AI-generated content. This underscored the vital role of human journalists in safeguarding deep accuracy and integrity of the journalism. The challenge lies in striking the right balance between the technological efficiency and the journalistic quality. Secondly, the evolving role of the journalists, including the growing emphasis on the high-value tasks and the emergence of hybrid roles such as the journalist programmer, signifies a profound transformation within the journalism profession. The rest of these hybrid roles reflect a shift in the skill sets required in the modern newsrooms. Accordingly, the option of AI does not simply replace the journalists, but rather enables them to undertake more substantive and impactful work. At the same time, journalists must continue to understand their own emotion as well as those of others, as this capacity allows them to convey narrative that resonate on the emotional level. This underscores the point that while AI can enhance journalistic capacity, the human element remains irreplaceable. These findings, I think, from many resources I think Professor Pavlik also mentioned we had the same research sources carry significant implication for journalism education and training. The curriculum should not only encompass traditional journalist skill, but also integrate and in understanding of AI. I think those issues that I think Pak Taufik from me first,
Okay.
so that we can discuss further on maybe from Pak Mas Wisnu first.
Okay.
That's my initial feedback.
Okay. Thank you, Bang Nil. Also, a little background for Bang Nil. Bang Nil is and this is probably for the information for our colleague in the US. Bang Nil is representing FIFA. This is one of the biggest television network in the country, and also sort of online publication as well. So, and I think from Bang Nil's presentation, I think the emphasis has been on the sort of the challenge that the newsroom have to take up in order to not only stay alive but to thrive under this artificial intelligence led development. Thank you, Bang Nil. I want to move on to my good friend Wisnu Nugroho. Until recently, Wisnu was the chief editor of Kompas.com. I think this is one of the biggest news portal in the country. Now he has moved up as the VP for sustainability for the Kompas. I think this is Kompas Gramedia. This is also the biggest news conglomerates in Indonesia. So I think what Pak Wisnu will say will carry a lot of weight. And I think it's going to be very interesting to hear about, as the biggest news outlet in the country, what ways or means that Kompas have taken when it comes to the adoption of AI. Thank you. Sorry, go ahead, Pak Wisnu. The screen is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Taufik and Professor Pavlik and Neil. I'm preparing this share with in bahasa in English, but I preparing it in bahasa Indonesia. How about that, Taufik?
Okay, yeah, I will sort of make a summary after your presentation. Bahasa Indonesia nggak apa-apa, Pak Wisnu.
Ya, oke.
Please, silakan.
Ya, saya akan cerita tentang bagaimana how Kompas Gramedia preparing the transformation with AI, menyiapkan sejumlah transformasi yang sekarang masuk di tahapan lebih lanjut terkait dengan masuknya AI. Jadi berangkat dari tahun 2022 saat kami mendapat kesempatan untuk bertemu dengan tim dari Microsoft di Dubai untuk melihat tantangan ke depan terkait dengan AI itu tahun 2022 menjelang akhir sebelum sebulan kemudian ChatGPT itu di launching. Kami melihat bahwa tantangannya begitu nyata dan apa yang akan menjadi tantangan itu bisa mendisrupt lebih dalam lagi terkait dengan jurnalistik. Setelah itu tidak lama kemudian AI itu muncul dan ChatGPT menjadi hal yang mencengangkan waktu itu di akhir 2022 dan kami bersiap untuk membedakan apakah ini badai ataukah ini climate change. Jadi dua hal yang beda. Kalau badai itu situasinya akan tetap setelah badainya lewat. Tetapi ketika climate change itu situasinya berubah sama sekali dan harus ada perubahan-perubahan yang signifikan. Nah, kami melihat AI ini sebagai sebuah climate change. Situasinya sudah berubah dengan sangat dramatis. Untuk maju lebih lanjut, tadi Profesor Pavlik juga menyebut sejumlah inisiatif di banyak media, di New York Times, di sejumlah media kayak Cosmopolitan, dan sebagainya. Kami juga memantau itu dan melihat sebagai cara kami juga merespon bagaimana media-media di luar yang lebih banyak terpapar dengan AI dan kemajuannya melakukan respon atas perubahan-perubahan itu. Dalam posisi ini kemudian kami melihat AI betul tadi Pak Nil menyebut tidak hanya tools, tetapi juga sekarang dia menjadi entitas tersendiri, bahkan dia menjadi konten untuk creator ya, jadi creator konten sendiri by AI. Tapi di awal-awal kami melihat bahwa AI itu akan menyangatkan kerja-kerja jurnalistik menjadi lebih satu efisien. Yang kedua, dia bisa lebih presisi untuk sejumlah data, dan kemudian kami memakai itu untuk mengembangkan sejumlah inisiatif di dalam. Dan menariknya, inisiatif ini mengubah cara kerja dan kemudian mengubah organisasi secara cukup dramatis ya. Saya menyebut beberapa hal aja misalnya sebagai contoh ya. Taufik nanti bisa menjelaskannya. Di awal-awal karena saya menjadi VP untuk sustainability, berita tentang sustainability itu banyak sekali dari sejumlah wartawan, even dari KG Media Unit. Ada Kompas, ada Harian Kompas, ada Kompas TV, ada Tribun, ada Grid, ada National Geographic, banyak sekali. Dan kami waktu itu memakai AI dalam konteks machine learning untuk topik itu, topik sustainability, dan membuat klasifikasi artikel-artikel terkait dengan SDGs, sehingga tidak memecah fokus dari redaksi untuk mengklasifikasi artikel. Jadi artikel dilempar begitu aja, machine learning di AI ini bisa membantu mengklasifikasi dan membuatnya dalam box-box tertentu sesuai klasifikasi yang kita tetapkan. Dan untuk ini kami mendapatkan Global Award dari INMA, International International News Media Association di New York tahun ini di bulan Mei, terkait dengan Best Use of AI for Internal Productivity. Ini yang kami lakukan dan kami melihat potensinya gede banget ini AI untuk membantu kerja-kerja di organisasi dan kemudian membuat langkah-langkah yang tadi kami sebut ini bukan badai tapi climate change, lalu melakukan sejumlah perubahan. Perubahan kedua, ini juga mungkin dilakukan oleh teman-teman sih di newsroom masing-masing. Kami pakai AI di CMS, Content Management System, dalam proses editing sederhana, seperti cek typos itu kami lakukan dengan AI. Kami tidak lagi pakai penyelaras bahasa, lalu memberikan suggest judul dan keyword untuk content planning dan memutuskan atau menentukan topik apa terkait sejumlah isu yang ada di CMS. Sampai kami mengeksplorasi soal perspektif dan tentunya dengan operator tim redaksi yang bertanggung jawab untuk konten yang tetap under control dari redaksi karena kami punya AI guideline-nya. Sejauh itu perubahan yang dramatis apa? Penyelaras bahasa tadi tidak ada. Kami dalam tanda petik pensiunkan penyelaras bahasa dan memberikan dia kecakapan baru, tidak menjadi penyelaras bahasa tapi menjadi AI coach untuk membantu membuat sejumlah langkah yang waktu itu AI-nya belum canggih-canggih amat. Jadi mengajari itu. Itu yang kedua kami lakukan. Nah, yang ketiga ini terkait dengan journalism quality ya atau kualitas jurnalisme yang tadi Profesor Pavlik juga sebut. Di kami menggunakan AI untuk menentukan indeks kualitas artikel dan konten-konten yang kami publish sehingga kualitas konten itu tetap bisa dijaga atau bahkan didorong semakin lebih baik. Karena mesin ini menjadi mesin yang dalam tanda petik dingin, nggak ada emosi di situ dan dia memberikan input atau report atau feedback kepada CMS kalau ada artikel yang tidak sesuai standar seperti yang kami set di awal saat melatih atau ada AI coach di situ. Ini dalam proses yang berjalan dan baru kami pakai di kompas.com di salah satu kanal dulu karena ini belum masif karena ini masih early adopted untuk proses AI. Nah, yang keempat, kami menggunakan AI untuk menerjemahkan berita ke bahasa Inggris atau bahasa lain yang dibutuhkan. Translation in English atau yang kita biasa pakai tenaga dalam tanda petik dari saudara sendiri di Jakarta Post, kami hentikan dan menggunakan AI ini. Dan untuk hal-hal yang sifatnya lebih rasa teknikal, ini kita masih tetap ada beberapa yang menjadi kayak AI coach-nya itu. Tetapi mayoritas pekerjaan, translation ke bahasa lain itu bisa kami lakukan dengan AI. Nah, yang terakhir, kami menggunakan AI, ini tadi juga disebut oleh Profesor Pavlik, terkait audio dari konten-konten yang ada di kompas.com untuk pelanggan kompas.com Plus. Ini sekaligus untuk mendorong subscription model ini tumbuh. Jadi mereka yang punya akses ke kompas.com Plus, dalam hal ini berbayar dan murah sekali, itu dia dapat AI untuk audio morning brief. Jadi tiap pagi tuh ada berita yang dia bisa dengarkan sambil commuting atau sambil nyetir dan sebagainya, dia udah dapat itu, dan ini AI murni, pure. Dan kita ada konten di YouTube-nya. Nah, untuk membuat semua itu, di awal tahun 2023 saat kami terpapar oleh AI di Dubai di awal-awal itu, kami sudah berpikir untuk membuat pedoman, dan sejak 2023-2024 awal kami membuat pedoman. Waktu itu timnya yang ngelit itu Mas Budiman Tanurejo. Waktu itu jadi pemimpin, wakil pemimpin umum ya di Kompas. Dan kemudian ada tim juga di sini Mas Haryo yang sekarang jadi Pemret Kompas cetak, dan ini menjadi pedoman bagi KG Media dalam pemanfaatan teknologi artificial intelligence sebagai landasan kerja jurnalistik di tengah kemajuan teknologi dan perkembangan AI. Tentu saja ini mengacu pada undang-undang tentang pers ya 4099, undang-undang 32 dan sebagainya. Ini kami buat di awal sebagai acuan baik secara etik, moral ataupun legal terkait dengan langkah-langkah kami di AI. Intinya adalah AI kami perlakukan sebagai alat yang membuat efisien pekerjaan di jurnalistik, mengoptimalkan dan membuat kerja-kerja jurnalistik menjadi lebih paripurna, karena tadi bisa translation, bisa audio dan sebagainya nggak mungkin bisa dilakukan. Tetapi semua itu ada dalam pengawasan dan kendali atau kontrol atau pantauan dari eh, tim, dalam hal ini editor atau AI coach itu. Kira-kira itu sih, Vic, yang bisa
Oke,
saya sampaikan
oke.
apa yang kami lakukan di Kompas Gramedia untuk jadi bahan. Thank you,
Oke,
thank you.
terima kasih Wisnu. I'm not going to translate the whole thing. I'm just going to summarize some of the thing, and this is for the benefit of everyone who's not speaking Bahasa Indonesia. So basically, Kompas started intensifying their use of AIs in 2022 with a caveat that everything have to be a journalist, editor centered process. And some of the items that Wisnu has shared in the presentation was that Compass.com or the network of Compass, they use first AI to sort of because Compass is a huge news network, so they have not billion, probably millions of contents, and they use AI to sort of help them catalog all the contents that they have online, mostly online. The second use of AI is the CMS optimization, helping reporters or editors polishing their language. Well, at least now I know that some of my reporters they submit better copies, and I think that also happens in Compass. The third function is I think helping editors to decide quality contents because editors at Compass they train the AI to judge the quality of the articles, and this is now being deployed to again train editors to produce good quality contents. I think the fourth use of AI, I know that this has adversely impacted on my side of work because I think Compass.com used to have translators from the Jakarta Post, but I think in the past 3 years they have decided to do away with human translators and they just use AI to translate their content from Bahasa Indonesia to English. I think the last part that Wisnu mentioned in the presentation was that you're trying to use AI to produce audio contents from everything that is offered on Compass.com to their subscribers. This is sort of the introductory content to Compass.com. If I can summarize the presentation from Wisnu, I think that's sort of the 5 major points from the presentation. I think we don't have too much time, but I think we still have around 15 minutes because I think we started a little bit late due to. But I think now everyone is here. I have seen on the screen 42 participants. There's a lot of chief editors. So I'm going to open the floor for everyone to ask questions to Professor Pavlik, to Wisnu, to Bang Nil. I think this is the best time to discuss the implication of our AI in our newsroom. Please, silakan untuk teman-teman Forum Pemret untuk kalau ada pertanyaan, maybe you can raise your hand or just open your mic. Silakan. Pak Jaka, or I think Ibu Retno is here. Probably you want to say something, Bu Retno?
Yeah.
Silakan, Mbak Retno.
Okay, thank you, Mas Taufik. I'm sorry for joining late because of the trouble. And also, I just got home after escaping the quite big demonstration around my office. So I just would like to thank everyone for such a engaging discussion. Yeah, maybe we can continue with the Q&A after this. Well, if today shows us anything, I think it's that the challenges facing journalism are global, but so are the ideas, the energy, and also the friendship that we can build to tackle them. I think on behalf of Forum Pemret, I would like to thank Professor Pavlik, Mas Inu, Bang Nil, and of course our moderator, Mas Taufik. Thank you for sharing your insight and keeping the conversation lively. And we also would like to thank Jamie Raffets and everyone from the U.S. Embassy for making this event possible. As editor, we know headlines fade quickly, but I hope the ideas that we exchange today will last much longer. Well, that would be all, Mas Taufik. I think we can continue for the Q&A.
Oke,
Thank you.
thank you, Bu Retno. Silakan, teman-teman, kalau ada yang mau ditanyakan. If not, I'm going to probably I'm
Can I
going to
ask a
start.
question? Is it all right if I
Yes,
ask a question? This is John.
This is Jamie, right?
No, it's
Miss
John.
Taufik,
okay.
maybe me, Mas Taufik.
Oh ya, silakan. Please identify yourself.
Yeah, my name is Agus Sudibyo.
Oh, Mas Agus.
Okay. I have one question for the speaker that we know that the flood of AI generated content has been met with response from platform like Google and Meta. We have adjust their algorithm for evaluating content quality. Google with EE80 and Meta with meaningful, informative, and accurate algorithm that made original content the new standard. Original content has become the paradigm, and we all media outlet are adjusting to it. But unfortunately, the digital advertising system is still based on quantity, traffic, click, and etc. So there is no specific metric for original content, which typically attract lower traffic. As a result, high quality content is difficult to monetize, while sensational content continues to draw advertising revenue. Instead, the priority of original content does not automatically benefit publishers, and instead it's actually just a strategy for a platform like Google and Meta to obtain free nutrition to train their own AI model. This has created what is called incentive misalignment. The publisher bear the production cost of original content, but
the economic value of original content is only by AI platform and developers. My question is, how have US media organization or publisher responded to this phenomena of incentive misalignment between publisher in one side and global platform in other sides? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mas Agus. I think we can have that first, and then I have Mbak Elin for the second question. Silakan, Mbak Elin. Are you still with us? Silakan, Mbak Elin. I think you raised your hand earlier.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello,
Loud and
hello.
clear.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Ah,
Oh, okay.
halo, halo,
Ya, silakan, silakan.
halo, halo. Tes, tes. Ah, oke.
Sudah kedengaran, Mbak Elin?
Halo, halo, halo. Halo, Mas Taufik, can you
Sudah.
hear me?
Ya, ya, silakan, silakan.
Oh, okay, sorry for that. Professor Pavlik, I have one question for you. Do you have any suggestion on how to make sure that the relation between publishers and AI platform will be equal? Because in this era of AI, the AI platform they have been continuously crawling our content and put into their system for free, because it's very difficult for us, because for producing the news or producing the content is not free at all. We have to budget it, and we have to have manpower to be able to produce the content. Do you have any suggestion related to that, so that the publisher will be survive or will be sustainable in this era of AI, and not become like victimized by the AI platforms? Thank you. That's for me. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Mbak Elin. I think we can have one more for this round. Silakan. Okay, if not, I'm going to go directly to the speaker. Probably I'm going to ask Professor Pavlik first to address this question. So basically, this is general question, because not everyone is New York Times, so we don't have the leverage to deal directly with them. So what is sort of your suggestion when it comes to publishers in Indonesia who probably doesn't have a level playing field? Please.
Thank you. And it's a great question. And it kind of relates to the first question or comment as well, this conundrum that news media face. And I think that there are already at least a couple of strategies that have emerged that may be useful. One is legal action, lawsuits. So a number of news organizations have pursued that avenue. And it may be that by doing a joint legal action, so rather than just one company, maybe if several join together, it may carry more weight. Part of the challenge there, of course, is there's so many platforms. How do you manage in that environment? But I think that that's one option. Another part of it is then forming agreements. And it may be that some are more willing to form agreements with news organizations. And so, there are some potential there. I mentioned the AP, Associated Press, has one that's formed an agreement with OpenAI, the New York Times with Amazon, and there may be other opportunities in this as well. And there are examples in the media realm, more generally, entertainment media, where agreements have been formed as well with AI platforms. And then I think that the other side of it is to continue to try to innovate in terms of the news organization and work with the highlighting of originality of content. Now, I know that it's expensive and the search tools may be more optimized for the quantity as opposed to quality, but there may be an opportunity for news organizations to do things that could better feature the original content when it occurs, or when they're publishing that can amplify its presence across social media or in other forms. I have a guest in my class this fall that's from a different realm, the immersive game realm. But young people nowadays, they're so into games. The two things that young people are really into, when they have time, is music and games. And if there's a way to reach out that would incorporate some of your original work, it engages young people in these other arenas. That could be something that might catch the attention of some of the platforms to realize, what, maybe we should do something different with regard to original content, because even though we will monetize the quantity over the originality more than we should, maybe there's a way to highlight the importance of that quality defined in terms of originality, and not only in terms of the quantity side. So I think that there are legal strategies that can be taken, but also I think there could be some innovative steps news organizations might take to try to highlight their original content in ways that maybe currently doesn't always happen.
Okay, thank you, Professor Pavlik. Bang Nil, you want to take the second question, because I think this relates to what you wrote the last time, that in Australia, for instance, I think all the tech platform decided to just pull away from Australia, even when you have regulation in Australia mandating them to pay. And in Indonesia, we only have a presidential regulation, which is sort of weak in terms of legal mandate. What do you think of that?
Yes, Mas Taufik. I think the global trend is quite clear. Yeah, the regulators are experimenting with the publisher right as a structural response to AI-driven disintermediations. If we look at the regulation, the regulatory approach around the world, like in at least there are four countries or region, like European Union, right? With the Article 15 of the CDSM Directive and AI Act, the EU granted a press publisher enabling right over the digital use of their content. And furthermore, the AI Act of 2024 adds transparency requirement, forcing AI developers to disclose training datasets, which strengthen publisher ability to demand compensation if their content is used. You rightly mentioned that the Indonesia has a Perpres 32 of 2024 on publisher right, but the implementation has been so weak. So no binding compensation mechanism, limited algorithm transparency, and no penalties for non-compliance. This challenge remains to adapt global lesson into a robust domestic framework. So I think when we look at the European Union and then Australia with the NMBC, the Canada with the Online News Act. In fact, United States actually have ongoing debates on the Journalism Competition and Preservation Act. So I think, especially when we saw the lawsuit again between New York Times and OpenAI and Microsoft, this case highlight the growing pressure to address AI training on copyrighted news, which is in Indonesian perspective. I think we need to harmonize our regulatory framework in terms of amending the copyright laws, and then upgrading the Perpres 32 2024 to become a full law, so that it has a coercive teeth to check and the compliance of the platform in using the news content in their infrastructure.
Yeah, and also I think we have to bear in mind that the presidential regulation was designed not with AI in mind, right? Because this was when social media or search engine was the primary motive for the government to draw that up.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I saw another question from Pak Agung, but I want to give the chance to Pak Wisnu to also respond to the questions. Probably the question from, I think, Mas Agus Sudibyo about now that we have shifted towards more quality content, but in fact, the old ways of doing things with search engines, they're still, looking for numbers. Probably the experience of Kompas because you have lots of content.
Ya, saya
Silakan.
menjawab dalam bahasa Indonesia sekali lagi supaya
Ya,
bisa
silakan.
dipahami. Saya sendiri juga rumit memahami ini dalam konteks sekarang karena perubahannya begitu dramatis. Di awal-awal kita dengan publisher right itu masih berpikir tentang sosial media dan platform. Sekarang AI masuk dan pada saat bersamaan bisnis ini terdisrupt dengan sangat dramatis ya. Saya melihatnya tadi bukan lagi badai ini, tapi ini udah climate change untuk industri ini. Kami tidak dalam posisi meratapi ini tentu, tapi akan berjuang ketika perubahan iklim ini terjadi, apa yang harus kami lakukan. Kita nggak bisa lagi atau kami tidak lagi melihat jumlah konten dan bisnis yang mengikutinya itu sebagai sebuah bisnis yang sustain di media sekarang. Itu kayak tinggal sisa-sisa aja. Apalagi nanti AI secara generatif bisa membuat ringkasan, rangkuman. Hari ini mereka mencoba untuk membuat ringkasan peristiwa berita hari ini. Sebelumnya belum pernah mereka bikin. Sebelumnya hanya konten terkait dengan yang timeless gitu ya. Sekarang konten yang sedang running pun oleh AI dan kita melihat di perkembangan di di platform itu mereka sudah bisa mensummarize dan tidak memberikan jejak apapun dari mana mereka mengambil itu sehingga kita mendapat manfaat seperti sebelumnya. Nah, pertanyaannya dalam situasi kayak gini gimana? Ini juga rumit, tetapi kalau kami di Kompas Gramedia, terutama di kompas.com, itu sedang membuat orang datang lagi ke rumah kami. Bagaimana konten kami tidak lagi diambil oleh orang, kalaupun diambil dia akan ketahuan bahwa itu ilegal. Dan itu yang kami coba jaga untuk membuat dengan AI sendiri untuk orang kembali ke news media. Nah, ini kita menghijack artificial intelligence untuk mendirect audiens datang ke platform yang kami miliki dan di platform itu pasti experience-nya jauh lebih bagus. Misalnya nggak ada iklan misalnya atau nggak ada gangguan-gangguan yang selama ini menghasilkan bisnis di kita. Tapi memang itu harus kuat sekali. Dan untuk itu investasi di situ menjadi lebih besar. Tadi Profesor Pavlik juga menyebut soal reporter can stay in field doing reporting. Itu suatu hal yang kami sekarang lagi memperkuat lagi. Jadi jumlah reporter jauh lebih banyak sekarang justru di lapangan. Karena itu nggak mungkin diambil oleh AI. Hal baru dan kebaruan ketika itu membuat konten itu menjadi hal yang baru buat kami, itu kami taruh di rumah. Sehingga orang datang ke situ. Nggak mungkin diambil oleh orang lain. Untuk ringkasnya, klasik jurnalisme ke depan, quote unquote, itu akan hidup lagi sih. Di orang ke lapangan, observasi lebih kuat, lalu menjadikan interview itu sebagai tools. Jadi nggak lagi bikin berita, cuman copy paste dari media lain dibuat berita, jadi membuat sesuatu yang akan tidak punya value lagi ke depan karena itu ya udah melakukan. Itu sih jawaban saya secara ringkas.
Okay, two things from Wisnu's point was that I think with the rise of AI, they have harnessed the power of AI to sort of drive the traffic back to their original website. That's one. I think the second point from Wisnu was that now Kompas is doing more in terms of original reporting because those are things that AI cannot do. Now, in fact, they have deployed more reporters to get original stories from the ground. Again, something that AI is not able in doing. I still have one last question from Mas Agung. This is Mas Agung. Please, Mas Agung.
Yes, good evening, Mas Taufik and Prof. Pavlik, Pak Neil, Tobing, Mas Wisnu, and teman-teman chief editors. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the sharing. I think it's quite insightful. I'm from the users, from the media, obviously. These are my colleagues, very respectful people of chief editors and the forums. I think from my perspective, the media has I have the questions. One is, first is the media. The way I see it is always about the editorial and the business side of it. From the business side with AI, I think the media has been granted with the increases of subscription, as the New York Times, the professor has mentioned, more ads obviously, and you have some business goal to achieve. That's a good thing about AI run from that angle. And from the editorial side, I think that's a challenge that we're facing and we're discussing about content, trust issues, and how it helps about summarizing all the contents, which I help a lot. But the thing is, my question with the New York Times case, for instance, with in 2015, it was like only a million subscribers, now becoming almost 12 million subscribers, which is a good revenue business for that perspective. The owners happy, shareholders are happy. But can we be back to the original question, as Mas Inu said, can the media still be trusted by then? Because the profit is high. Can they be neutral? The credibilities of it. As you know, the media is always claim I am the fourth pillar of democracy in the world. So when profit comes in mind, those things might be changed. I'm just guessing, because once Stephen Covey said in the formula of trust, when you have a high trust, you will obviously have higher speed and high revenue, that's what New York Times is having right now. My second question is, when we have these presidential decrees on AI and regulation into law, how forceful the enforcement of the law we can do it to all the journalists, or even for the readers, for that sake? How can we, just not making the law, that's another issues with DPR and Parliament, but enforcing it to all the commoners, to all the common peoples, I think it's going to be another challenge. How can we do that and mitigate those issues? Only those two questions. Thank you. Thank you, Mas Taufik. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Pak Agung. You want to address this question? Probably when you're New York Times, can you still be impartial?
Well, I really can't speak for the New York Times. I've done a little work with them in the past, but I can't speak for them in any way other than as an observer or a consumer of the New York Times. But it's a great question about this. And I think that one thing we can actually use AI, not when we talk about transparency, it's not just transparency in how we use AI, but using AI to become more transparent. So I think that one thing we could do that I've been kind of encouraging news media to do for a long time, and I think we now have the tools to do it on a timely, scalable way, would be on every story to have some sort of like a interactive little button that allows the reader to see every fact that story introduced and every source used to produce that fact, so that you could then have a metric that people could see, okay, they have this story isn't just a scraping of everything else. They've introduced 5 new facts from 5 different sources, and I can then see what they did, and I can make up my own opinion. Do I trust this now? And I think that could be helpful. And then in terms of the other part of it, I mean, how you get the government. News media aren't powerful. Publishers aren't powerful like they were in the days of maybe William Randolph Hearst or even more recently, but I think that through coverage and talk about these issues in the report, in the news, some news stories, I think that might be a way to, and make it part of our regular coverage to, incorporate some of these issues. That might be something that would get the attention of the elected leaders.
Okay, Bang Nil, you want to address the question about how to enforce regulation, or in our case, this is the press, right? I think the problem is so much with the platform instead with media.
Okay, let me speak in bahasa ya to make it, because this is about regulation. Tentunya tadi seperti yang di concern oleh Pak Agung tadi, memang dalam hal baik publisher right maupun AI ini kan memang ada masalah etis dan masalah regulasi ya, Mas Taufik ya. Jadi kalau dari sisi etis tentunya ada mengenai transparansi, accountability, fairness, non-discrimination, bias algoritma, dan tentunya professional integrity dari wartawan gitu ya. Nah, di sisi lain, selain kita juga memang mencoba melakukan literasi digital, bukan hanya kepada pembaca, tetapi juga kepada jurnalis, tentunya juga harus didukung oleh regulasi gitu. Nah, in terms of rank gitu ya, tadi Mas Agung bilang memang undang-undang itu memang yang paling tinggi. Dia memiliki kekuatan imperatif gitu ya. At least dia bisa melakukan sanksi dan dia bisa penalize dari apa namanya pelaku yang melanggar aturan tersebut gitu ya. Nah, AI ini nanti kan akan bentuknya juga perpres gitu ya. Sama halnya dengan Perpres 32 mengenai publisher right yang akhirnya menjadi simbolik saja gitu, tidak punya enforcement tidak punya kekuatan enforcement gitu. Nah, ini yang saya khawatirkan dengan Perpres mengenai AI ini. Ini hanya akan lebih banyak mengenai masalah etikal gitu ya, mengenai etis gitu ya. Tetapi akhirnya menjadi apa istilahnya rapuh dalam sisi regulasi. Karena memang kalau di Undang-Undang P3 itu memang Perpres tidak memiliki kekuatan koersif. Gitu. Udah jelas di situ, tidak memiliki kekuatan sanksi, bahkan Perpres itu sendiri juga akan sulit dijadikan dasar untuk membuat badan atau lembaga independen yang mengurusi penggunaan AI nantinya gitu. Jadi menurut saya Indonesia harus seperti European Union lah, agak ada keberanian sedikit lah membuat dalam bentuk undang-undang. Memang terlepas dari berbagai apa namanya dinamika di Senayan sana ya, yang semuanya serba lamban dan seterusnya gitu. Tapi ya ini AI ini kan lebih gila dampaknya daripada internet gitu. Jadi ya ini memang seluruh stakeholder harus memahami ini gitu.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So basically, Bang Nil added on the point of that the Indonesian government lacked the political will to draw up a serious regulation with regards to AI. And I think the regulation that Bang Nil suggested was that the regulation should not only tackle the ethical issue, but probably some of the details with regards to data protection or how AI companies can scrape off data from news outlets and having to pay for that. So I think that should be in the planned regulation that is not being discussed by the Indonesian government. Wisnu, I have one last minute for you. You want to add something before we let you go?
Ya, sedikit aja terkait pihak lain ya, kayak undang-undang, peraturan dan sebagainya itu bagus sekali kalau ada dan itu memang tuntutan kita bersama. Tapi mengharapkan itu keluar di luar kendali kita itu luar biasa susahnya. Itu satu. Poin kedua adalah apa yang akan kita lakukan sebagai media industri dalam bentuk organisasi atau asosiasi atau forum dan apa yang akan kita lakukan sebagai entitas media dan entitas bisnis di dalamnya sebagai masing-masing karena itu tantangannya real banget, nggak bisa kita mengandaikan semua membantu kita sementara kita nggak melakukan apa-apa atau organisasi atau asosiasi yang kita miliki tidak memperjuangkan ini. Nah yang ketiga, kita berhadapan dengan platform yang gede banget, nggak mungkin kita hadapi apalagi media sendiri atau dengan asosiasi atau apapun. Di posisi kami ngelihatnya itu gimana melihat peluang itu untuk kita manfaatkan sesuatu yang bisa kita ambil dari platform itu untuk mendetach atau membuat kita tidak lagi banyak tergantung dengan platform meskipun masih ada ketergantungan. Makin independen dari platform itu kayaknya jalan ke depan jurnalisme ini punya masa depan menurut saya atau menurut pandangan kami di konteks ini. Makanya klasik journalism tadi kayak jadi mantra baru untuk ini di sini. Itu sih saya sedikit. Thank you.
Okay, so basically Wisnu added the point on the urge. He's basically urging that I think journalists or journalism should go back to the old ways of doing things and probably less dependent on big tech platform because that's the only way forward for legacy media to sort of thrive against the competition from digital platform and now the artificial intelligence. I think we have. I think we have run out of time. Time flies when you're having a good time. But I think we have so far we have had a good time. This is 2 hour plus discussion, and I want to thank Professor Pavlik. I know you probably have a class after this. Apologies for taking much of your time. Thank you for Bang Nil to join at the very last days of invitation. thank you for Wisnu to also join this discussion. And also I want to thank everyone at the US Embassy for making this seminar possible. And I want to thank also my colleague at the Forum Pemret to also have this discussion possible. I think I want to close the discussion with, I think there's a statement from Wisnu, the last point that he mentioned about, I think media players and all the association need to rise up and I think band together to deal with some of the challenges that has been presented by the tech platform, and now especially I don't want to say the threat of AI, but the challenges from artificial intelligence. That concludes our discussion tonight. Thank you so much, and I hope we can see again in future discussion under the banner of Forum Pemret. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Terima kasih Pak Taufik, Bang Nil.
Terima kasih, Mas Tobing.
Terima kasih.
Thank you.
Dr. Pavlik, Mas Wisnu.
Mas Wisnu, terima kasih.
Thank you semuanya. Ya. Kita live.
Wisnu top banget Wisnu.